we are back with another episode interviewing Michael Brandt, the founder and CEO of Health Via Modern Nutrition, or HVMN, 7-figure and quickly growing into an 8-figure brand. We're going to be talking about how he works with many prominent influencers in the biohacking, health, running space, people like Lance Armstrong, Andrew Huberman, Max Lugavere. Even if you haven't heard of those particular influencers, think macro influencers, big in a particular category. Michael talks a lot about how he's diving deep into these categories, and specifically one just in those couple. A lot of brands work with influencers. Not many shine the light on them as much as they do. I mean, you go to their Instagram feed, their website, it's prominent in their partnerships, and that's the word that Michael kept using. He truly views these people as partners. And you'll get to hear his perspective on why he dove so deep into partnerships versus maybe paid ads in the beginning, but how he's currently implementing influencer content and using their social content in paid ads, and how that's effectively working for his brand, and how he's built out his team, how much he's spending on marketing and influence marketing in general. And also stick around at the end. He has some great advice for brands starting out based on what we discussed in this episode. So super excited for this one. I'm a health nerd, so I try not to nerd out on all the ins and outs of ketones and everything that he was describing at length, but really, really fun conversation, and excited for you guys to listen in. All right, see you in the episode. Michael, why don't you give a little brief overview of your background, 30-second pitch on how you came today?
Sure, yeah. I studied computer science in undergrad, got really into biohacking really early, like a decade plus ago, got into marathon running, continuous glucose monitoring, at the time hobbies around measuring and optimizing my body as a system. I then spotted this opportunity along with my co-founder and our team here on creating a pure ketone drink. Our first customer on that was the United States Department of Defense. We got a multi-million-dollar contract with Special Operations Command to develop a pure ketone drink. Ketones are a form of fuel. A lot of people maybe know about them because your body makes them whenever you're low blood sugar. So if you're fasting or starving, doing endurance exercise, anytime where your blood sugar is going low, your body will make ketones, and they're nature's backup super fuel. Our innovation was we figured out a way to make a pure shot of pure ketones. And so you can just go to the store now and buy a shot of 10 grams of ketones. And it's really nice. It's a super fuel for your body, for your brain especially. Feels nice. It feels kind of like runner's high. And then it's very metabolically efficient, low oxidative stress, good for long-term metabolic efficiency. And we did all this work over many years. The first several years, we were working very much in science fair project mode with the DoD. And 14 months ago, so it's March 23 right now, in January of 2022, we launched our technology to the consumer world. And a big mission has been, hey, how do we paint this story? We've got Green Berets using ketones at 20,000 feet of altitude, rucking and at low oxygen and doing target practice and doing all this like super badass stuff. How do we paint that story into our direct consumer business, our Amazon business, our retail business? How do we tell that story of what this powerful new nutritional technology can do at scale? And as an added hurdle to make things more interesting, the product tastes crazy. It tastes like it works. It's not your mom's apple juice. Like it tastes like ketones. And so people have to understand like what this is, what this does, and why would I drink something that tastes like an apple cider vinegar shot, immunity shot, a lot turmeric, a lot of stuff tastes a little off. And I don't think that's a showstopper. It's just more like, hey, I want to understand why that tastes that way or what benefit I'm getting out of that. So that's our story.
One of the things that I thought was interesting around your story, and I saw this on your LinkedIn, was that you're an adjunct professor for advertising strategy, which I just thought was interesting, especially since we're in that space. And then you're a product manager at YouTube. So I don't know if you're still a fan of your former employer, but I just thought that was interesting with your background and creating a product, which most people don't have that background coming into creating a brand.
Yeah, I was a product manager at YouTube in early days of YouTube. If you guys remember Gangnam Style, remember that video?
Yeah.
That was the first video to ever get 1 billion views. Now a random Justin Bieber bop gets 1 billion views, but that was the first, it was a big deal. Wow, we got 1 billion views on this. And that's when I worked there and worked on features like, this sounds so like boomer at this point, but at the time it was novel to like auto play the next video. And that was the types of features that I was working on back then. And then after I jumped from Google, YouTube, and started getting into entrepreneurship, I also picked up I was the youngest professor at the Academy of Art in San Francisco, where I lived at the time, and taught this really cool class around brand building. And the whole idea was that brands express themselves across a lot of different surface area. I like to think about brand surface area, where your logo looks a certain way and conveys a certain thing. So does the way that your customer success team answers tickets. So does the way of like the feel of your packaging. So does, if you do a podcast, like the sound of the intro loop, that little like sound branding. That basically the best brands are synesthetic, and they take the same core of like who they are as a brand. Are you authoritative? Are you fun? Are you traditional, old school? Like, what are you as a brand? And you espouse that across all of your surface area. So this was for like undergrad and master's level students. Just going through each week, we would focus on a different medium of like, hey, imagine you're an online store. How would you build an offline version of that? What would offline Netflix or offline Expedia look like? And then the next week, we'd do something totally different, exploring another medium of like sound. Like, how does a brand express itself in that medium? And I don't know, everything in life just sets and reps. It was cool to be teaching that. I was like on my journey. We're always learning. That's the thing, is I was at a spot where I had something to pay forward to teach, but I've learned so much more even since then, actually jumping in and, you know, founding a business and doing it myself as well.
When it becomes your baby, then it now means a little bit different, right?
Yeah, it's also funny because I got into this because I like, you know, brand strategy and all that. And then, man, you end up dealing with like your bank financial meltdown over the weekend. Like, you get it, like, for anyone out there consider, I mean, you guys are entrepreneurs. Like, you should have a compelling reason why you want to be an entrepreneur, but just get ready that you're going to spend especially in the early days, like most of your time doing other stuff just to make it work until you've hired that all out. And you can maybe, if you're lucky, get back to the magical spark of why you got into entrepreneurship to begin with.
Well, let's get into the nitty gritty of your brand and influencer stuff. So, I mean, not sure if you're comfortable sharing, but just annual revenue, what you guys did last year, what you're expected to do in 23.
Yeah, I just give like general numbers. Like, we're going from a high 7-figure company into 8-figure annual company.
Awesome.
Come on, man. Congrats.
Thank you.
So percentage, and we always ask this question to guests, is like ballpark numbers of percentage of revenue that you're spending on in marketing.
We do about 30% in marketing. Yeah.
And then very quickly, obviously, we're going to get into the weeds of your influencer strategy. What do you guys spend on influencer? This could just be a macro bucket. I know you're doing lots of different things with partners, but...
Yeah, it really depends where you draw the line on influencer, because we spend a lot on partnerships broadly, of which I consider influencers a subset, where we partner with a lot of podcasts that are really big in our health and performance space. So Global Cycling Network. I was in Aspen during the Tour de France last year because Lance Armstrong is a friend, and we partnered with him on his podcast and talk about why all the Tour de France riders are obsessed with Ketone IQ. Is Lance Armstrong an influencer? He seems like bigger than that, but I don't know. A question I would have for you, like, where do we draw the line between also deal with an elite collegiate runner with 8,000 followers? It's going to look different from how we're working with Andrew Huberman Lab. And there's just like a menu of different options. But I would say that all in all, partnerships is majority of how we think about spending money. Because I look at it this way, like, you got to grow, and you can either make Mark Zuckerberg rich, or you can just work out directly with people in the community, build those relationships, get the authenticity there. And it's tempting to work with Facebook because you generally just drag the slider over. Hey, instead of spending 5,000, I want to spend 10,000. I want to spend 15. But it like breaks because it's not as efficient. If you're able to actually maintain, and this is something you all obviously help with, if you're able to maintain like dozens of relationships with influencers and partners, that's not easy, but you get a lot more efficiency than just like chucking over $100,000 or whatever it is to Meta, Instagram, Facebook spend.
Elaborate on what you mean by efficiency.
Literally, like, if you're just a numbers person, if you're just looking at like acquisition costs, I think back in like 2017, you could just make like a killer Facebook ad and sell your fidget spinner. And the fidget spinner Instagram ad era is over. Like, you need to actually have step zero is have a story. Like, our technology is interesting, came out of the DoD. Like, my buddy over at Sanzo has launched and is absolutely crushing it with the biggest Asian American soda company, and it's like lychee flavored stuff. Like, he has a very good story there, and they're in Panda Express, and they're like playing that super well. And whatever your story is, like, step zero is have a story, and then step one is like, go find people to help like echo and amplify your story. So like, I'm a marathoner, triathlete, I get after it, but we go and find people who are like way better than me, who are like, top 3 runners, or like we recently signed this guy on Team Ineos. His name is Cameron Worf. He's the only pro cyclist who's also a pro Ironman triathlete. So he's top 10 in the world Ironman and is a pro cyclist. There's no one
So
else
he's
who's
a
like,
stud, in other
he's
words.
this absolute stud. And yeah. So finding these types of people, you got to sometimes like be clever at how you're underwriting it all, but that like the impact is a lot more than just buying Facebook ads and spamming everybody.
Michael, how are you gauging that impact from an acquisition cost standpoint across your partnerships? Just to give you context, that's just obviously a lot of the listeners, a lot of the people that are following influencer marketing, that's a pretty big problem, tracking ROI when they get into the space.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's 2 general models for how to track the impact of an influencer. Like the strong attribution is like they're using your code and you can actually see, okay, people are using code Huberman at checkout. Like I can actually see. And then like in that same bucket of just strong attribution, I consider strong is like, we also do a post-purchase survey where after you check out, and we have pretty high response rate on this. 40% of people will answer like how they heard about us. And you just like multiply that by 2.5 and like, okay, we got 17 people that say they heard about us on the Global Cycling Network, and we had a 40% response rate. In order to figure out, doing some quick math here, like what 100% would look like. It's like, okay, what's 17 times 2.5 to get that up to 100%? And that's what I would consider like strong underwriting, where, okay, we worked with this influencer and then like the conversion happened. I would consider like weak underwriting, but I think still valuable and good to know is like, sometimes when we do campaigns, it doesn't drive the direct conversion, but it's like a 1-2 punch where it drives more branded search or it drives more volume around remarketing. So like when we're doing remarketing campaigns on social media, those are always really efficient. As you know, it's like remarketing is when people visited your website and you're then hitting them with a follow-on ad. So if you get a bunch more visitors on your website, you increase that volume, and like the people who've already visited your website, just it's obvious they'll be more likely to convert than someone who's never heard about you in the random Facebook, Instagram universe. So looking at things like branded search, looking at increasing in remarketing volume, those are other ways that we will underwrite. And then I would say like the absolute weakest underwriting is literally just like views. Like, okay, we were on this podcast and that got 500,000 views, and we are willing to generally pay, X cents CPM for a view, even if we don't see a direct conversion off of it. If we think it's in our vertical and we think those views are legit, like that is worth X cents on the dollar to have that number of impressions and like CPM it out.
Quick follow-up question. I love how you brought up remarketing, increasing efficiency there when, partnerships are going live. How are you directly attributing that, just for the listeners once again? Like, okay, how do I know this is exactly what's happening? Do I just need to go look at, hey, these influencer posts went live at X time. Let's go look at, how our remarketing, got impacted at that time on Facebook, for example. Did our conversion rate go up on Facebook amidst that? They're getting retargeted at that point. These posts went live, it's doing better, or the website traffic went up during this time. What are you directly attributing to this variable specifically? How are you doing that?
Yeah, everything you mentioned, website traffic, remarketing volume. You can also, if you're looking at a specific influencer, you can like be doing remarketing at like whitelisting from their account as well. And that keeps it really specific, where it's like, okay, people who saw their original post or engage with it are then like, how much more can we serve like the follow-on post? So
love it. Cody and I did our research here, but on a podcast last year, you had said just buying straight ads on social media is not the only way for us. That's maybe a small sliver of what we do. It seems like you've been touching on that, but are you just a little bit, when you're referencing this, are you referencing the fact that, hey, you're not this big proponent of just giving Zuck a ton of money, buying straight ads, you're more into partnerships? Is that kind of what you're saying there? And if not,
more into partnerships, that even when we do ads, it's almost always it's a partner in the ad. It's either whitelisted or we've brought it onto our own account. And so even the creative itself is driven by partners. I think gone are the days where you do like a fancy photo shoot with like models and nice lighting and all that. Like I just see this in my own organic content. I've been posting every day this year and just like experimenting a bunch. If I'm like at my computer with my microphone saying something really smart, that does okay. If I'm on a run out of breath, like a little snot flying out of my mouth. Like I run every day. It's like on my run, like saying the same thing, but probably not as crisp because I'm like out of breath and the phone is shaky. That post will do like 5 times better than like the set piece. And I think that's just generally true in just in the meta in general, that people want authenticity. They want realness. So it all goes back to saying like, yeah, the partnerships, just, getting out there directly where people are actually just hearing about us from the influencer and from the partner directly is top of the pyramid. And then the next level down is like using our media dollars, but like using the creative from those partners who are telling an authentic story and getting that out there. And then we just do very little like, here's a photo that we took that looks really pretty and you should like be impressed and buy our product. That just doesn't super work anymore.
I'm just curious as a follow-up question on that, Michael, is when running an influencer's creative and paid social, when doing it from your handle in comparison to the influencer's handle, that piece of content has performed better from your brand handle in comparison to the influencer's handle, you're saying?
No, sorry, other way around. Like it generally does
vice
better.
versa.
Yeah, it generally does better as the whitelist. Like one of our best ads, it's like you don't even know it's an ad until like 40 seconds in. It breaks all of the rules of like what you'd expect for good creative because it's whitelisted. It's not obviously branded, and it's an influencer like doing a workout at the gym, and they're just like really excited, high energy. And then like later on in the ad, again, it's like it's not in the first 3 seconds, 5 seconds. It like breaks all of the best practices. It's like half a minute into the ad, they'll talk about how they're using ketone IQ. But by that point, the person's so engaged and this guy's like so magnetic, and that is doing really well. So it depends, man. Like, I think that when you're saying like, hey, buy now, save 20%, like do it, like that coming from the brand with authority, I think is good. But when it's more of like your first time you're hearing about it, it's more of a discovery. People are really allergic to being advertised to. So like you can fly more under the radar when it's whitelisted. So it really depends like what step on the funnel that someone is like more top of funnel, just painting with broad strokes, that like more top of funnel, it's coming from other people's accounts. It's more partners, more whitelist type of stuff. And then as people are later and later on the funnel, the idea is like get them into the brand. And then remarketing is kind of that mid funnel stuff. It's kind of a blend of both. And then definitely like the later funnel, it's like, okay, you're like following us on social, you're on our email list, like you've bought from us once, we're like trying to get like upsell someone into a subscriber, make this part of your life. Like it goes like towards the core of the brand through the funnel.
Michael, as you're talking, I'm just loving everything that you're saying, because on one hand, like we obviously talk to founders all the time, and a lot of them are very, very impatient, which I'm sure you're impatient with a lot of things. But it is the buy now, because for every dollar I spend, I need to get $2 back. And so why would I do influencer unless I'm going to have a direct ROI? Mm-hmm. And the ways that you're thinking about it is relationship first. You want to have long-term partnerships with the right people.
Yeah.
And of course, you're utilizing them in the right way, and like, of course, getting their content into that account. But it's not like the main thing that's driving.
Yeah. And I understand that in patience. But what I would say is it's like trying to cook a soup with a single ingredient. It's like, it doesn't matter how much you work that potato. Like your soup is going to be bland as shit. Like you need a couple other ingredients. Like you got to do both. Just think about how you find out about anything in life. Like there's an awareness stage. It just feels different. If you're just like explaining this to your 5th grade cousin, it's like the way that you find out about things tends to be more like out in the world. Like you hear about it from a friend, it's more organic. And then like the thing that actually makes you drive is you see it on the shelf, you see it like you're in a mode to purchase something, you're searching, and then you go and buy. And I don't think it needs to be this like either or holy war of like, oh, do I do direct response or do I do awareness? It's like, if you do it well, you will see that doing good awareness makes your direct response stuff work way better. And if you're just doing like partnership spend and you're not feeling like the conversion is directly there, like try doing some direct response. We were like super front loaded. We were doing a lot more partnerships than we were doing direct response. It was working pretty good. But then once we turned on direct response, because we'd been doing all that partnership influencer stuff, there was so much volume of like people that were softly aware of us that were ready to convert. It's a 1-2 punch or like a multi-ingredient soup. And it's like, I think silly to be thinking about like, put them both in, like figure out like the whole soup.
For the video listeners, I'm just like scrolling through the website. One of the things that I was immediately taken back by or impressed with is there's a lot of brands that actually work with influencers to the degree that you are. And you mentioned influencers, like, do I consider Lance Armstrong an influencer? Of course, yes. There's a lot of semantics around what word to use. I was really taken back by like how much you're featuring them, not only on your website, but on your social. Influencers always been like from the beginning, you guys wanted to start and invest in this channel because there's a lot like you go to your Instagram, you go to your feed, you go to your website, it's like front and center. It's about you guys. You go to your ad library, it's in your ads, like it's all over the place. So like, was it something that was like from the beginning, we want to invest in this channel?
Yeah. A big part of what we need to do for the stage that we're at is create a movement, create a community around it. There's that saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can have this strategy that's, hey, ketone and IQ, ketones in general are the next macronutrient, and they're going to be a nutritional primitive. And I believe all of this. It's going to be bigger than collagen. It's going to be bigger than CBD. Ketones are a form of fuel. We're all doing metabolism all the time, 8 billion humans. Sugar is terrible for you. Caffeine, we shouldn't be slamming, all hours of the day. We need a form of fuel that is better than these legacy products, legacy ingredients. Super bullish on that. But like, okay, what are you going to do with that? Like, you need to build a culture, a movement around it. So like, luckily we're at a point where I have a really good team around me and I'm able to spend a lot of time in like, yesterday morning, I went on a run with a guy that won the Tokyo Marathon and for the like 50 plus age group. Absolute beast. This guy, Ken Rideout, former boxer. Also, like we're talking about what partnership looks like with him to get the word out. I think this is part of our secret weapon of how we're able to do it is like, I'm literally not even exaggerating. Like I do like 3 different cold plunges a week, partly because I like to cold plunge, but partly it's like I'm on this like LA scene of health and wellness influencer set. And we also have a partnerships team and they're doing like most of the heavy lifting, but I think it's helpful for the brand and for me to be like out there active on the scene. Like you can't just
you're living and breathing it every day.
Right. And I think that's a part of it. And then so to really answer the question, like, this is all on purpose that like I'm putting a lot of my CEO energy towards building out the community and network. Web team is putting all those front and center. Our ads team is putting all that front and center. So yes. I think you have to tell a story. Otherwise, you're just a product in a bottle. And then, like, what do you have that's different? What do you have that, like, Frito-Lay or Pepsi or the big coast can't do? Like, they have random brand managers who, like, aren't allowed to say anything on public social media. Like what you have is, like, you can go and, like, be friends with different people and move really quickly and build a community and be really raw and authentic about it. You're not going to have the big bucks. You can't just roll into Whole Foods whenever you want, like the way that these big codes can. So like, I would say the community stuff is all on purpose, and I hope I explain why we've been focusing there.
For sure. So it seems like it's something you've definitely been heavily invested in since the jump. Was there a certain partnership that was a light bulb moment, like I'm onto something here in the beginning stages of the business? I know Ben Greenfield was one of the partners, but what kind of led to this is a great channel for us?
Yeah, it's interesting you already call it. Ben Greenfield was his like early big partner for us. And for those who don't know, Ben Greenfield's big influencer in the biohacking world, has been for a number of years, and is legit like one of the most rigorous biohackers out there. He's a little crazy too, and I think he would say so too. Like he tries everything. He does the infrared ball zapping. Like he will try anything. He's very rigorous about it, and the guy is like a major athlete. Has done a bunch of Ironman. Spartan Race is really big into. Does like hunting. Does a lot of outdoor stuff. Just really big proponent of active lifestyle. Has tried out a lot of different hardwares, supplements, things like that. So he has a lot of credibility in the space because he's tried things out and is like serious reader too. Like he will unpack. Like I was on his podcast and really going into the details on the science under the hood on the product.
Michael, what'd you do in your first partnership with him? Was this like a one-off post? Was this like, hey, we sponsor your podcast? Like, what did that look like when you first jumped in?
There was just organic interest. I was on his podcast organically, just like this. Like no one paid anyone. And it was just like,
that was your first touch point.
That was the first touch point. What we're doing was interesting, right? Like we built this pure ketone drink, and a lot of folks in this space have been like curious or been trying to make a pure ketone that is a reasonable price, tastes good. Like we've known for a long time with like keto diet, fasting. We've known for a long time your body can make ketones, that ketones are really efficient. What are these guys doing over at HVMN? It's my company. How do they make this? What is this? Come on my show and talk about it. So the organic thing did well. And then we said, hey, like if that does well, like I can't be a guest on his podcast every week. I get maybe boring for everyone. But we could sponsor. We could be in his newsletter, his top picks, his he has a whole menu, and every creator will have their own different but similar media kit of like, oh, I have a newsletter. Oh, I don't have a newsletter, but I do events. Or like, where do you want to place your brand, your product in here? And what we learned from that and what we do now is we always start with something reasonable. You want to put enough. It kind of depends what stage you're at as a business, but you want to put enough of a toe in the water that you're going to learn something. If you buy like one social media post, it's not enough. It's like you're sitting down at the poker table. Like, don't sit down with one poker chip. Like, sit down with like a reasonable stack, right? What are you going to do? Like, you might be the best poker player ever. And yeah.
One ingredient for soup, one poker chip.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're really big on the like polarize it, make enough of a bet. I don't know. Like, people want round numbers. It's like put $10,000 into something. Like, see if that actually makes you more than $10,000 back. Everyone's at their own kind of operating stage of where they are as a business, but that's what your investors want you to do. If you have taken in capital, it's like you are supposed to take bets. Your investor could have kept that money and put it into interest rates are pretty good right now. Like, they could have kept it and put it in a treasury note and made money there. Like, they want you to take bets. Some of them will work, some of them won't work. And then you see, and then okay, cool. Like, and Ben Greenfield worked well. And then like the next guy we tried working with didn't work well. It's like breathing. Like, you're inhaling and then exhaling. You're like expanding that network, and then you're like cutting off the things that aren't working and keeping the ones that are, but then you're expanding again. So like our marketing budget's like always like going up, and then we like freeze it and then isolate what's actually working inside of it before we expand it again. We're not just always like, hey, like line up new partners. It's like, you got to be smart about it. Like, you got to take tests, and then you find the people that really work and you ask them, hey, can I get an ad every single podcast with you? Like, you really push into the ones that are working, and you pull out from the ones that are not working.
Just to stay on course with your analogy here, when you breathe in, you breathe out, you isolate, and then you look to expand again. Are you doing any seeding in these expansion efforts when you're looking to build new relationships? Obviously, I mean, your capacity is limited in the amount of people that you can go on new runs with and build relationships with. So are you doing any sort of seeding while you do this? It does seem like you are a guy that would believe in no strings attached and building relationships just in that sort of manner, but curious to hear from you on that front.
Yeah, no strings attached is 3 beautiful words in the English language, and we mean it, right? Like, you send product out to people, no strings attached, see if they like it or not. Keep it on very equal footing, and I think what we're doing is really cool. If Nike sent me a free pair of Nikes, I'd be like, cool, thank you. Like, that is awesome. Like, I don't think the brand, you want to be too like, oh, please try my product. But you also don't want to be like, oh, aloof, like, who are you? Why should I send you my product? It's like, generally, we just have some basic rules that people have a certain level of following. If they're in certain verticals, we just reach out. We have...
Break those down. Listeners are very curious. Like, what are you exactly doing? What's the first starting points? Like, what's the rules that you guys have in place? Is it a minimum follower count, engagement rate? Obviously, categorically, you have categories that you're hitting.
To double down, is this majority inbound, or are you doing outbound as well?
We do a lot of outbound, which, we're a 20-person company now. So when we were smaller, we didn't have all this headcount. And I don't know exactly the ideal sweet spot for where companies that you all work with as well, where like, if we didn't have it in-house, it's something I would still want to do. At this point, where there's like a full-time person who like does outbounding. And so we have certain parameters, like there's certain verticals that we are in. Like, we're not... Can this work? Can our product work for a tennis player? Like 100%. Is tennis our core vertical right now? No, not yet. Like, we are really deep into endurance sports, cyclists, triathletes, runners. We're really deep into like military adjacent community. We're really into biohacking. Like, can this work if you're playing basketball? Hell's to yeah. Like, it's all stamina, but that like our saturation and awareness within that vertical isn't there yet. So we try to like compound, right? Like, compound on... I'd rather every cyclist in America or in the world has heard about us 17 times versus like 17 different sports have heard about us once. And like, I don't know, sprinkle something into pickleball and golf and it's like, that's not going to do it, right? You want to really compound. So anyway, we're always like moving around our numbers. It's, just loosely. It's like, yeah, someone with like 10K followers, probably good audience. Look at the ratio of engagement that they're getting. Are the comments on their posts like real people, or is it spammy shit? And yeah, stacking from there. Like, I think there's a certain amount of budget to just like seeding. You want people where you can like get a lot of volume with not a ton of work.
If I'm listening to that, I'm thinking that sounds great. Andrew Huberman, is like
Yeah.
the go-to guy. And, people are following him for sleep and fasting and all these different things, biohack. I can't afford Andrew Huberman. That's my immediate thought is like,
Right.
man, go for the volume, but you can waste a lot of money on the wrong macro.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And we couldn't always afford these super big partnerships. And you're right. I think it's about stepping up. I guess what it is that whatever budget level that you are at, try to have some like littler pebbles and some larger boulders. Like whatever you're currently at, if your marketing budget is $30K a month, like maybe do a lot of stuff that's like you're spending $100. Just, hey, here's product, like period. Like for me, if my budget is $30K a month, 10K or 5K even is a big number. Like, what does that look like? I don't think you can have like an entire marketing plan that is only people with 10K followers out there. I think that can be a part of it. What we have seen is like, that is good for community. And then also getting people with like bigger following.
Just a follow-up question. Is that due to just the labor that it takes, the time investment that it takes?
Yeah.
Because my counter would just be, okay, if that's not a factor here, if that's not a variable in this equation, micro influencers, you get a lot more bang on a per follower basis, greater engagement rate, a lot of time more greater conversion rate, honestly, across the board.
Yeah, right.
And it's a lot easier to align your brand with their audience at that point because it's a smaller pool of people. But it sounds like just from a time investment standpoint, that's where you want to get more bang for your buck on a bigger influencer.
It's true, right? Yeah, that there's all of this overhead that's involved with working with anyone where you're developing the relationship, you're sending them product, you're jumping on a Zoom call, you're underwriting the economics of the deal. And if you can do that once with someone who can drive a lot of revenue into your business versus doing that like same amount of spend, but splitting it across 100, you're possibly spending a lot more calories to do the same amount of like spend out and dollars back in. And it's all just math on like, well, if you can get really efficient, maybe this is where you guys are the magic formula. Like you can get really efficient on the OpEx side of that to where you're able to have it not be hard to interact with 100 different people as opposed to one person, then that's interesting. But it is 100 different relationships. It's 100 different people. Hey, what's a ketone? Hey, why does this taste weird? Hey, like, when do I use it? Hey, can I get more from my buddy? It's like, I'd rather have that conversation with Ben Greenfield than, I mean, we do both.
Like you shouldn't be talking to the 5,000 follower, but you're going to be talking to Brian Greenfield and Andrew Huberman, managing those relationships. Your internal team member that's full-time is probably managing the $15,000 or 15,000 follower military mom, or something.
Right. And I think his point is like, you always want to be kind of like climbing the pyramid up. You might be talking to like smaller people now, but like you want to always be like reaching, like the whole purpose of a business to grow and expand. And also influencers, I think you guys know, and I think just worth calling out, like, it's not like you're a 10,000 follower person forever. Like sometimes when you get in early with these people, they become the next Ben Greenfield. There's that moving part as well, where we've seen that too, where like you establish these partnerships early and then like, oh, wow, like because you were early with this person and now they are way bigger than they were before.
It's a great point.
Yeah, like you've hooked in. So it makes sense to always be investing in, it's kind of portfolio theory. It's like very similar to how you might like think about what investments to make, short-term, long 401k versus investing in startups versus this, that. It's like, what's your portfolio?
All the analogies, man. You're killing the game.
Man, drinking a lot of ketones.
Question for you, just kind of transitioning. We're obviously getting to the tail end of this.
Yeah.
Advice for brands listening in today that want to work with influencers. If you can give just some key takeaways that you think would be valuable for them.
A few different pieces of advice. Get help. We've touched on it a few different ways. It's going to be a lot of legwork, and I don't need to like overly pump your guys' bags. You guys are obviously really good at what you do, but get help with either internal or external. Like figure out, as a founder especially, or even as a head of marketing, head of growth, like you're not going to be able to have more than like, I don't know, a couple dozen relationships. It gets crazy. It gets crazy. The CRM on it, the just calories spent on Zoom calls and passing documents back and forth. Like get help. That's, I have to say, is thing one. Thing two is develop resources that you can share, like frequently asked partner questions, so that you want to reduce the amount of like one-off conversations you're having with people. You want just like, here's the 6 questions that people have. Here's like the do's, don'ts, what to say. We actually keep that really sparse. Like we actually don't try to overly coach people. My stance on it is like, here's the product, here's the 101 on it. You do you. The way Huberman talks about it is going to be totally different from the way Lance talks about it. I don't know, man. I don't have 8 million followers. Like, what am I going to do telling anyone, even someone with 5,000 followers? Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know why your shit works. Here's why my product works. Like, we always try to bias towards freedom to the influencer. So keep that like info set relatively small. Don't have a lot of like do's and the lighting must be this way. Like, let it go. You'll get more creativity and you'll be able to move a lot faster if you're not heavy-handed on it. And then the third thing,
great points.
Be an influencer yourself, even if you're not awesome at it. Like, I have like several thousand followers. I'm not like an influencer. It's not my main day job, but I'm in there, out there. Like, I'm making content organically. I have a feel for which of my posts go more viral, not viral. I'm like on the scene enough to where I get invited to things, or I can DM people that are way bigger than me. And I'm not an influencer. I'm a CEO, founder. I got a lot of other things going on, but I'm like alive. I look alive. If you go to my Instagram page, and I think the difference between like looking alive versus not looking alive, and like if your last post was from like October 2022, it's going to be a little bit hard for you to click off with someone. It's like, I think another analogy, we like analogies here, is like I'm not a pro marathoner, but I've run a bunch of marathons. I've ran Boston. So like if I'm talking to Oregon Track Club, like the most elite guys in the fucking country at running, if I'm talking to Ironman athletes, like I know what a workout feels like. Like I know what it feels like to run 70 miles a week. I know what it feels like to do a track workout versus a long run versus a recovery day versus how I like to recover. It's like, I'm not elite. I'm not going to the Olympics, but I can like talk to that guy. And I would say the same in the influencer world. Like you don't have to be a Kardashian, but like get some sets and reps in on your
homework.
Yeah. Do your homework so that like, you know a little bit how the game works. And
so for everyone listening, if you want to get into the marathon category, you better start running. That's what I took from you on that
100%.
last point. Well, Michael, appreciate your time today. Jam-packed, full of great advice, what you guys are doing with your influencers and partnerships. And I love how you're just referring to them as partners more than anything is awesome. You're reminding me of days at Kalo where we were a silicone wedding ring. We could easily go into every category because if anybody's married in any category. But we really skyrocketed when we picked CrossFit and we just like dove in. So like for you guys, like I love that you guys aren't trying to be everyone to everything or everything to everyone, but you guys are really going deep into certain categories such as marathon, biohacking, all these different things. So yeah, I appreciate your time and thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys both. Yeah, a lot that we covered here, and definitely encourage people to reach out if you're listening in. Drop a line. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram.
Took the words out of my mouth. What's your handle? What's your handle on Twitter?
We're all semi-pro creators, influencers here. Would be remiss to not say. My handle is BDM_runner. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram. My company is called Health via Modern Nutrition. We are just at HVMN, and you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, love to hear what people are doing in the entrepreneurship world, partnerships world, just broader biohacking, health, wellness. Love to be in touch with people. Drop a line for sure. Love to hear from people. Trade notes. The meta is always shifting. Like everything that we're talking about today, like is always shifting dynamics. So I would love having conversations, chatting about what's working.
Thanks for joining the show, man.
Thanks, Cody.
Appreciate you, Michael.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, that's all for today. If you'd like some help developing your influencer marketing campaign, go ahead and DM us on Twitter. Links are in the description. Or you can head to kinship.co to learn more, and you can book a call there. That's KYNSHIP.co. At kinship.co, you also find tools, templates, and resources, all designed to help you grow an influencer campaign that drives visibility and sales, not just likes. Thanks for tuning in as always, and we'll see you next week.